A pleasure to meet all at last. And so, we're back at it again with Nerf Secrets Revealed Aftersought Part 2. And so, what I'm going to do is evaluate a certain blaster that has in fact been known, but this particular breed of the Mega Cyclone Shock unfortunately has pretty much slipped our minds. Now granted, Nerf has in fact released trios of reskins and recolorations of various blasters. In 2020 we got a splatter variation of the Hammer Shot, which a bit surprised. I was mostly surprised by it, only because of the fact that, contrast to Nerf Secrets Revealed itself, the original series I had from 2013 to 2020, a Hammer Shot came out originally in 2013, while another Hammer Shot would come out 7 years later. And that, to me, is a unique contrast. And in 21 and 22, then we have this, which is part of 3 Cyclone Shocks that came out at that point. And while it's not exactly a recent addition to Nerf's lineup, it still does, in fact, retain some of the original copyrights, with 2013 being the prime one on this side. Otherwise, it's a little more than just a Cyclone Shock. Although, much like when I renamed the reskin of the Hammer Shot to the Splatter, I could do the same with this. Well, why don't I just simply call this one the Castaway? So, Castaway Rev 6 is what this will be known as. And so, right down to the darts themselves, a unique color scheme of some spectral purple, pink, lime green, and orange, all with matching darts, in fact. 6 of these are in fact included, and is technically more exclusive to this blaster than other such cases. But, as you might have guessed, Cyclone Shock functionality is still pretty much the same, with single shot still being fully intact. But of course, like the Cyclone Shock itself, actually, not like the Cyclone Shock. So, right off the bat, I've detected a bit of a con here, because originally, yeah, there you go. Originally speaking, you could in fact use slam fire on this blaster, but it seems not so in this case. I don't know why, because that's basically how they designed it, but not with this. Nah. And I would suggest the same kind of problem happens with the other reskins, but that's probably up for debate by this point. So this blaster does not have slam fire, unlike the original, and that alone can be quite a disappointment. But otherwise, I will say that the usage of one tactical rail, a small foregrip on the bottom, which I don't know if it's necessary or not, 6 dart capacity, handguard, and unique slide action. I'd say you could get your money's worth on this piece, but I'd honestly stick to the original, because not having slam fire on this is rather disappointing. We don't exactly get slam fire Mega Blasters that often, and there's been very few others out there. So I would suggest sticking to the original, unless of course one saving grace comes in. Well, so let's just see if the invisible test works. Okay, so looks like it has a bit of kick to it, just as it should be expected. But otherwise, I wouldn't really advise picking up any of the reskins that have come out. So, for the Castaway, at least out of all the reskins, it unfortunately does suffer a bit of incohesion, unlike the original. The original did give us a signature flare for the Mega line, creating a new Maverick Rev 6 or Elite Strong Arm, since you couldn't necessarily get slam fire on a revolver type blaster like this. So, That to me doesn't quite fit the theming of the Mega Cyclone Shock that we know and love. So in this regard, while it does do a good job at what it is, being a reskin, that's probably all there is. And I will say 5.9 out of 10.1 will be my overall scoring for this. Kind of average, but it's mostly meant for the cosmetic appeal. If you happen to be a fan of these kind of color schemes, these sort of palettes, these sort of patterns, then definitely go pick one up, because Amazon will sell most of these exclusively, and that is how I got a hold of my own. This particular color scheme is not the only one that you can find out of all three that currently exist, but otherwise I'd suggest sticking to the original, especially if you're hoping to get Slamfire out of it. And I will be back with some more material real soon for Aftersought Part 2.